Right. Hello. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between. Welcome to 2025. Welcome to the first Anatomy Crosscast of 2025. And I want to very quickly, right off the bat, give a shout out to this dude for one, jumping on the show, but for two, complimenting my room. And then, of course, Tony Slam, welcoming him as the new Slam co-host of the Anatomy Crosscast. This gentleman, after our debut initiation Tony Slam session, will be more or less helping me talent scout for new slam bands that he thinks should be on the show going into 2025, as well as, when he has the time for it, just like Finn the Orking with the MySpace era and the MySpace aesthetic and subgenre in deathcore, consistent of all those movie samples, as well as the more gritty, more traditional roots of deathcore. Well, Tony is going to be doing me a favor and helping me out, kind of educating the entirety of the Crosscast audience as well as the Crosscast, right? There's a little play on words there. But after all, the four of us are now going to be collectively the Crosscast, the cast of people on the Crosscast. It's a mouthful. It's
A
a
lot of
mouthful.
cross.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. It's a mindfuck is what it is. But in the future, going into 2025, one thing to look forward to from Tony on his own time will actually be an audio research project of sorts talking about the legacy and the history of slam, starting with bands like Guttural Slug or Epicardectomy, Cephaloptropsy. There are so many different legendary bands now that, for example, in Virulent featured on Glorp versus the State of Slam for that collective slam chorus, right? Well, one day our intention will be to host as many slam bands as possible, but not only that, but really do our homework and understand the history of slam so far, and therefore Tony will be taking the reins on that, collecting a presentation, putting that together, and then now, because Google Meets is too expensive monthly, even though it's nice and pretty and it helps us go live on YouTube in a cleaner fashion, in a more flawless fashion. And then Zoom, right, that's what we started the Anatomy Crosscast with, formerly the Anatomy Podcast, until we were competing with an actual lobotomy show over on Spotify of sorts. Now the Anatomy Crosscast is going to be hosted on Discord, and it's a very familiar environment for the Goons and the Goons podcast. They do that as well. Or Void FM, which is hosted by Exociety founders and two lo-fi hip-hop rappers, Rav and Kill Bill the Rapper. I do believe they also do Void FM on Discord. It's more gamer friendly. I think this is going to be a lot more clean of a way to record these sessions from now on. And not only that, but sure, we don't have that more sophisticated, more fancy, more advanced, maybe it's a setting in Discord, I'm not sure, but the transition between all the faces on screen, right? The entire time you'll see everybody, and therefore maybe I'll have better access to thumbnails and stuff, or like little pictures, screenshots. But tonight, we kickstart 2025 and the Anatomy Crosscast after getting three to four episodes out. I do believe we have two more left. Other than that, this is brand new material, right? We are hosting an interesting project that I happened to run into, I think, because of a Facebook community and group called Unsurpassed Brutality. Through that, I saw a post. I saw an advertisement for Backyard Savagery. I like the logo. I like the fact that their new album had this sadistic-looking clown and motherfucker. And then on top of that, how quickly the person we have in chat from the band, which I haven't been introduced to by name, because their Facebook profile is named Backyard Savagery, right? Well, only a little bit confusing. But he proceeded to immediately get a crosscast intro cooked up. So there's this session, and then in the near future, we have another individual. His name is William A. Zephyris from a band called Consume the Assailant that also dropped a 3-track debut EP of sorts. Well, as soon as possible, we will also be hosting him on the Anatomy Crosscast in a very similar fashion, as he was also able to cook up a crosscast intro as quickly as he did. we respect, we honor, we admire those who are that quick with the process. That way we can get the session cooked up, get it recorded, and then get it unleashed upon your ears. But it's not only me hosting anymore. So, Tony, how are we doing tonight?
I well, so I did have some burning questions in my head that I wanted to ask
Yes.
this gentleman. Um, who are you, and what is your name, sir?
I'm Nick. Nice to meet y'all. Um,
Nice to
and
meet you.
I'm just a kid from Utah, man.
How old are you, brother?
I'm 19, man.
You're
Damn,
19. Holy
19, huh?
shit.
Shit, dude.
Yeah, sure.
Sean, I think this guy's gonna be like the next Nick Hill or something like that.
We'll see. We'll see.
Um,
The
but
crosscast will
no,
determine that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, Nick, how long you been doing music, bro?
I've been doing music for about 3 years. I started making EDM and then I wanted to make like a little bit of rap music. I tried that out. Wasn't
Okay.
very good at all at either of those, but it gave me an understanding early on of what goes into creating music. And then about like almost 2 years ago, in March, it'll be 2 years ago, I got my first guitar, started making like rock music, and then I discovered slam. Started making slam about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
I,
Because
mm, I
if
think a
you
little
remember,
longer than that.
gotcha. Because I confused you like your project for another band. So back in the day, so I've been like I was telling you earlier before we started recording was I have been doing music for more than 10 years, about 11 years now. Um, and there was this project called Backyard Cannibalism, and I was like, is this the same guy? But clearly not. So that definitely helps like get the confusion cleared up in my head because I thought you were that same guy, and I'm like, oh, is this that guy? Like, are we interviewing him now? And fucking, um, because so
Gotcha.
Backyard Cannibalism was a one-man project. I forget from where, but essentially, uh, like I said, I thought that was you, and because that guy has changed to Backyard Savagery. No, not Savagery. I'm sorry, but back to Backyard Cannibalism and like a few other names with the word backyard in it, and that's why I was like, wonder if it's the same guy, but clearly not. So, um,
No, sir.
it's
And that's okay.
okay.
As far as I'm
And
concerned, we got this guy on first. So this is better. So fuck.
well, that you guys should check out that guy's old band too, because like that shit was cool. For show for
Jared
show.
Cannibal?
Backyard Cannibalism, yeah. He was a not necessarily a homie of mine, but like we kind of bumped shoulders online on the old like 2015 Instagram days and shit
Oh,
like that,
jeez.
and I just yeah. So I know a lot of dudes from the old like slam scene and stuff like that. Like the rise of the slam worldwide effect or whatever the fuck people want to call it. It's like I always just say it's like you guys remember the SoundCloud rap era of trap music.
Yeah.
Well, I consider like the early 2010s and like all the way up to maybe like 2019 to be like the kind of prime era for like the sound, not necessarily SoundCloud, but like the SoundCloud era for is what I like to call it for
Right.
slam.
It's
And
it's the
so
equivalent of the SoundCloud rap era, but for slam. And I think the slam worldwide effect that has a nice ring to it because usually when you think of brutal slamming death metal, when you think of death metal, slamming death metal, all those different fucking iterations of the same thing, roughly, no offense, to any bands applicable who like, no, it's different. It's like not really, but it all sounds good. It
not
all
really.
sounds good, and it's ear candy for Neanderthals. Okay, I'm one of them. I have a thinner beard right now, and that's okay. So I think the Slam Worldwide effect has a nice ring to it. But of course, you are the Slam guru of the Anatomy Crosscast until further notice. So you get to coin all that shit. You get to coin all that shit. Um,
Nick,
so
um, oh, sorry, Sean.
you're good.
I had one more question for him. Nick, what was like some of the first like slam music that you discovered that like made you want to go, oh, I want to make music like this too?
Actually, a very funny story. I don't know if you remember this, but a while ago I left a comment on one of your videos saying how I discovered you from a CD I got at a Graywell down here. Um,
What is the Graywell?
Graywell's a CD store that we have here in Utah. So
I
that
do
was
remember about
actually,
it.
believe it or not, that was actually the first time I ever heard slam, and it's kind of a funny story behind it. Uh, so my mom took me to the Graywell, right?
Right.
And I was into deathcore at the time, and I was looking through all sorts of things they had there. They didn't have much deathcore. I got a Suicide Silence vinyl, but that's it. And I found your album in there, and I picked it up, and
Appreciate
I
you,
went
bro.
out in the car. My mother was with me, and she's very cool when it comes to this sort of thing. She's a little religious, but she's very accepting and understanding. So she's a great mom. Um, but she
Got it.
does have her limits of what I can and can't play around her. So I put the CD in, and she was looking at the song names. Yep, yep.
No fucking way. That's
And she was
cool.
like, "Holy shit, this is fucked up. Skip this one. Holy shit, this is fucked up. Skip this one." And we skipped through a couple
Uh,
songs, and then Kill the Pedophile came on, and she was like, "Ah, I can get behind this. I like this one."
What a great
So
out
yeah,
start.
of
that
all
was
the
actually the
songs,
first slam band I ever heard, and that's what got me into slam. Then I started listening to stuff like Guttural Slug, Analepsy, Guttural Disgorge, and I just
okay.
started looking at more and more of them, and I discovered quite a few of them, and I'm like, I'm gonna try to make this.
So
So
you're
that's
Yeah,
telling
what,
that's
me, you're telling me, Tony, that the first person, the first personality we fucking get on the show happened to start slam because of listening to your album, bro.
that's fucking hilarious,
What a
bro.
what a
no
fucking
shit,
peak
dude.
right off the bat. Just
And
like,
he's wearing the Abominable Putridity shirt. I just
mhm,
fucking noticed too.
dude,
Oh shit,
dude, what
dude.
a
Hell
start.
yeah.
What a start. What is
Uh,
happening right now?
what is fucking? This is
This is
insane right
this
now.
is cosmic is what this is. This is
Can
weird.
can you show off your shirt real
Yeah.
quick? Okay, it's
Um
not the one that I'm thinking of,
I
but
don't know
I
if you can
have.
see it that good.
Okay, so it's that album. Gotcha. Because I don't know where the fuck it is. It's probably in my laundry somewhere. But anyways, I have it's like that album, but it's like a full printed, like it's all over the shirt. So it's on the backside too.
dude.
And I've had
It's
that
fucking
for,
badass, man.
I have a bunch of merch, dude. Here, I'll show you.
Ooh, we're about
So
to go
I
through
have
his
these still.
merch collection. Oh, fucking lit, dude. Yo, you
Yeah,
know
I
That's
just
what?
fucking
gotta.
sick.
That's
I want to buy, y'all are selling those, right? I want to buy one of those.
Yeah, I think we still have a few left. I can sell you. I can
Yeah.
sell you one.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sean.
no, you're good. You're good. I'm just like still reminiscing upon that. Like how the hell the first band that we have when Tony is co-hosting with me, it's like, oh yeah, I started slam. I started getting into slam, and more or less maybe like I started writing slam riffs and contributing to a slam project because of the band that you're in. Like, huh?
Yeah, I appreciate that,
That's
dude.
that's
That means a
why
lot.
that's why when you told me the co-host would be Tony Slam, I was like, "Fuck yeah, man, that's sick."
Cheers.
Yeah,
That's a great start.
I guess you could say I'm kind of a shithead in the slam community.
Well, he
Hell
likes he
yeah.
likes to push buttons, but like in a funny way, in a meme way that nobody
Yeah.
else acknowledges.
It,
I don't think. But I think
yeah.
that's a
For
pretty
sh-
Tony.
I
Keep
salute you, sir. I feel honored that like that my project was like the first like, I guess you could say fucking, slam band that you checked out. So that's fucking awesome. And I do remember that comment. I don't remember what post that was though. I'm trying
I
to
don't
look,
either.
but I do like I know what you're referring to. That's pretty
Yeah,
sick actually. I appreciate you, bro. What
yeah, of course, man.
I wanted to ask you too. So I assume it's just you in the band. I don't know anything about your projects. Is it? It's just you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what? You said you started producing EDM and then you were into rock and all that stuff. What? what would you say is your other inspirations besides maybe like, the like guttural slug and, analepsy and stuff like that? Like, what are some of your other inspirations?
I love Suicide Silence. When I was younger, I was listening to stuff like Megadeth and a little bit of Metallica. Um, and I always liked like a little bit of rock music too, like Papa Roach and stuff like that. So those are some other influences from other genres. Um, More from slam though, I would say like Peeling Flesh. Saw them live; they're kick ass.
Just saw them like two
Um,
months ago.
yeah, yeah, they're awesome live.
Amazing band, man.
Devourment,
Okay.
love Devourment, and
And
see one more Angel Maker.
Angel Maker, that's a
nice.
good one. That's a good one.
They are so good.
They're fucking badass.
They're gonna be even better this year with fucking Ian Bearer as the secondary vocalist for
I
the
was gonna say.
dude. Like that's. I have a feeling. I have a feeling, boys, that Angel Maker 2025 with Johnny, Cordillo, Casey Jones, Casey Needler. No, that's not his last name. All I know is his first name is Casey. And then Ian Bearer, and then Colton. Dude, those four vocalists
Yeah.
alone, that is going to be a juicy record. And then the drummer, I don't remember his name. I think it's like Steve or something. He was in the last 10 Seconds of Life for the majority of their life cycle. And then,
Majority.
yeah, and then right after the self-titled, like when they all just like kind of shot in different directions, John Robert C. went to Crystal Lake. Well, he went to Angel Maker. We have yet to hear material with him on it, except for Suffer Forever and Relinquished, of course. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they cook up this year. Spite 2, dude, this year, 2025,
Yes.
is going to be a fucking massive year for metalcore, for slam, for deathcore. Like, dude, it's going to be one of the biggest years, I think, in a long time, where we've seen just so much music. There might even be too much music this year to digest and to really absorb. And that's saying something. This is coming from a music journalist who, with his chapters, everybody has their top 10 of 2024, 2023. I usually go up to like 14 or 15 just because there's so much music. Boys, there might be like
Yeah.
a top 20 this year, and that's just for full-length albums. That's not mentioning all the EPs and standalone singles that might be unleashing this year. So, here's to 2025. But speaking of albums, I think now would be a better time than ever to go ahead and segue and actually commit and jump into our front to back listening session experience for Backyard Savagery and its newest full-length album that came out yesterday on January 3rd.
Much, much, much later.
Good shit, man. Fucking amazing. Fucking
Yeah.
amazing. Like I said, I still think Track 9 is by far my favorite, but
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, but like like I said, a lot of people in the slam scene don't like constant bass drops, but I think it's very much appreciated in my opinion. So
Right.
I love because it's
I
like
love them, man.
it's like an 808 bass drop. It's not. I know you said you use subs or whatever, but it's very reminiscent of that, and it's fucking sick, man. What what is your like? I would say. I think we touched on your inspirations earlier of who inspires you to make music, but like I don't really think we like touched like very detailed on it. So, like, who else inspires you, brother?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because there was one band that I didn't mention. I don't know if you guys have heard of Diphenylchlorazine. Um, Fucking
Yep.
kind of a crazy band name, but I
Yep.
love them. They're, I think from Norway. They have a member from Cranium in there.
Yep.
I
Matt's
think,
Thunderroad.
yeah, and they're fucking by far my biggest inspiration for my music. They're why I started using the 8 string over 7 strings.
You're using an 8 string on that album?
Yes, sir.
That is fucking crazy, bro. Like, because I was like, okay, he's clearly playing in drop G, but like, also I couldn't, like I said, the guitars are so thick sounding on that. It makes a lot more sense now because I figured you were maybe using like a 7 string or something for that.
And I got a Schecter Omen Elite.
Nice.
It's just great for this kind of stuff.
What yeah, that was the other band I was trying to think of, so that I was like, damn, this reminds me of like that really raw slam was Diphenylchloral Arsine. I fucking I love it, dude. I love that you're heavily inspired by like a lot of those bands because like those are I feel like Cranium and Diphenylchloral Arsine and fucking maybe even like Extermination Dismemberment are good like if I was gonna show somebody slam, that's what I would show them, you know? Like those bands specifically. And I know that Sean's more of like a deathcore and
Yeah.
you know other genre kind of guy. He's not as maybe well versed into the slam genre. He knows like Devourman and fucking Dying Fetus. Dying Fetus is more brutal death, but like you get my point. And uh, Sean, I'm sure you're familiar with like you know obviously Abominable Putridity and shit like that. You know
Yeah, I
the
mean,
main the big five.
I would say my slam seasoning roots and is founded in personal bias, right? In Virulent, which is not pure slam, but it's necro thuggin. It mixes slam with hip hop. Love those guys. And dude, they're full length this year. They showed me a couple tracks when I was on the road with them, and their new shit's gonna be really really good. And I hope that everybody who knows about them looks forward to that as we attempt to get Alex, their new guitarist, and McDaddy Matty on the show, tell their stories, do an listening session for that, and then boom, get caught up otherwise. But for me, it's in Virulent. Extermination Dismemberment is always a fun one. That's a good franchise. European slam band. I call them the 505 murderers, really. Or the 505 aside, I guess, band. Let's see. Other than them, I would say, let's see. Trying to think. Because there are plenty of slam bands that I do listen to. Flesh Mauler from Spain, from Madrid,
Okay.
Spain, formerly with members of Counteract, and I think a couple from Cries of Saints as well. They're a Spanish slam band, but they're really good. Internal Organs External is another one of mine. As far as my favorites, Party Cannon, duh. Those are one of the biggest slam bands that I've had on the show, let alone that I'm friends with, that I'm buddies with. Um,
Shout out to Chris Ryan, the
shout,
homie.
yeah, shout out to Chris Ryan, great dude. Felt bad. The dude looked like half asleep when we were doing the Injuries Are Inevitable podcast session earlier in 2024. He did not look like he was happy to be there. I felt so bad. But he was also fresh from a flight, so he was like jet lagging as fuck. But, um,
Oh, yeah.
Unrelenting Butchery, though, that would be an Oklahoma local one that I got to see live for the first time recently. They are combining forces with former Slam Project Field Dressed, and we're going to be getting them on the show. So Tony's look forward to that. We're going to be getting them on the show here pretty soon. Um, let's
Fuck yeah.
see, yeah, Unrelenting Butchery, Peeling Flesh is obviously one of the newer players in the game that I really appreciate because not only do they do slam, but they also incorporate hip hop backtracks. And a part of me is really hoping that if not their main vocalist, I'm really hoping that they're actually one of the first slam bands to get a hype man. That way they can do their own original backing tracks for future Peeling Flesh material as opposed to borrowing samples from like other iconic hip hop artists. I think it'd be really, really cool if they had a hype man to kind of back up the main vocalist who rapped and kind of did like a separate track behind him.
Hey, hey, hey.
Well, not even that. Like, if there was another person rapping the same way that they've wanted to have in the background already, I can only imagine how good that would
Well, they
be.
use samples.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, if they didn't use samples and instead they had someone who had a mic and he was just kind of rapping alongside the main vocalist, I think that would be really sick. But it also most likely goes hand in hand with that MySpace era and maybe they prefer to use the samples. Maybe they had that opportunity and decided to kind of like fly right past it.
I
I'm
was
not
just gonna
too
say
sure,
that.
but other than that, I mean, yeah,
Well, I think like the main point of them using the samples is because obviously it's like 3 6 Mafia derivative. Like they're obviously sampling 3 6 Mafia and like other Memphis like rap from the 90s and stuff like that.
right,
Because when it comes to that style of slam, at least from how I look at it, and maybe Nick can relate to this too, is like the reason people use those kinds of samples is because obviously it's going to be used in a backing track live most likely, and that's there's something about I don't really know how to pinpoint what I'm trying to describe, but the best way I could like articulate it is that it it makes it a little more special when there's like samples used because of like if it was just a person rapping, I don't think it would be as effective because, like a perfect example is Shoot to Kill by Peeling Flesh. It's got the load up my big, the reason that is so iconic is because, oh, that's maybe not necessarily a 3 6 Mafia sample, but that is a Memphis rap sample that, like, for instance, Suicide Boys is used. And so people are listening to that and like, oh, that's fucking sick. Like
yeah,
metalheads
it's
who
yeah,
branch in other directions of genres and kind of like blend the two, if that makes sense.
right,
Because
absolutely.
if you
It's
remember, if you guys remember for like a long time, like even in the early 2010s, like it was like rap, metal, rock, and now it's like there's so many like different subgenres of music where they kind of blend in together. Like Disfiguring the Goddess is a good example where he's the EDM producer and he's also a slam artist or a metal artist. So he kind of like if you listen to newer Disfiguring the Goddess versus back in the day, like Disfiguring the Goddess now has like a lot of like ambient like electronic synth samples in his music because like I said, obviously he's a EDM producer and he kind of wants to correlate that with his EDM stuff and make it sound really ambient and give it
yeah,
a different feel versus what other like bands are trying to emulate.
yeah, absolutely. No, I completely understand the culture of utilizing samples from movies and with Peeling Flesh, Memphis rap from the 90s because there's a sort of nostalgia to it. Yeah, there's an Easter egg mechanic to it. It's like people love to hear references to maybe underground rappers that they used to listen to way before they got into metal. And then with Peeling Flesh, those two cultures kind of like they entangle, really. They have a sloppy fucking orgy of sorts. Um, so then I guess yeah. The only reason I mentioned that is because of course MySpace is or the MySpace deathcore culture is very well known for its samples. There are plenty of bands, plenty of slam bands and deathcore bands outside of the like this is MySpace that also do that because they're I think it's really just the Easter egg and the nostalgia bit to it. And if you're well seasoned enough in movie culture, TV show culture, I mean, for example, Spites, what is it? Spites, I think Made to Please is actually a
Um,
reference. I forgot. I think it's The Legend of Zorro. It's the um I forgot the scene. He's like, "You fool! You fell for the biggest trick in the book." But like, the pitch is super turned down. I pinpointed that recently.
right.
Or Angel Maker, um, the I think one of their songs off of their self-titled I just recently realized was actually a reference to "Don't Breathe," because that's a movie.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. It's like there's nothing a man cannot do when he accepts the fact that there is no God. I'm like, that's a cold line. But then I found the movie for that. I'm like, oh shit! Like that stuff I think really is the purpose and the niche behind samples in heavier music is hearing such a diabolical track and being like, where the fuck did this come from? And maybe how long it takes you to then pinpoint that if you're not also a cinephile, as they're called, right? Very fascinated with cinematic culture. Of course, there's definitely a niche for that, and it allows for all these mediums of entertainment to interconnect. But I still stand with what I said, in which I think it would be cool if not Peeling Flesh, another band, but if Peeling Flesh wanted to capitalize off of it. Can you imagine how cool it would be if they decided to acquire a hype man who then also maybe has
Right.
a scratch deck like Sid style, and he's able to do that shit live? You know, I think that could be really really fun for them. But that's just my personal opinion. Other than that, from the perspective of this being a front to back session that then deep dives a little bit more than what we've done before, but that's okay, into the formula that
Um,
is the Anatomy Crosscast. I wanted to go ahead and
so
provide Tony.
so Nick, one of the questions I wanted to touch on that we have written down is are you from where you're at in Utah, or are you born somewhere else geographically speaking? Where's your hometown?
Yeah, I'm actually from Idaho Falls. I kind of been all over the place though. Moved pretty much my whole life. This is the first house I've lived in longer than like a year.
Okay. And so Idaho Falls, that's in Utah, I assume, because I'm not too versed in Utah.
It's in Idaho.
It's in Idaho. Oh, okay. And how long were you in Idaho? Because you touched on that you've moved. Did you stay there for like a year, 5 years?
Yeah, I was born there and I stayed there for about like a year, 2 years, something like that. Not 100% sure, but around there.
Okay.
And then I moved to Utah. Then I also went all over the place. Went from Wisconsin to St. George, all sorts of different places in Utah.
Poor dude didn't even stay in
St.
Spawn that
George,
long.
man.
What the hell?
God damn it, Sean.
I don't know.
Bro moved from the spawn point.
It's way too quick. What the fuck? He said, "Nah, there ain't no Spawn
Yeah.
point."
I mean, some people's lives are like that though, because I mean, I had a lot of friends that like moved here in Cali and fucking, that now this is their home. But when they were growing up as a child, it was like, yeah, I'm from Texas or I'm from fucking New York or something like that. And it's definitely a tough situation when you don't have like a place that you can call like your hometown because like obviously you've moved around so much. What is like do you to touch back based on your music, like would you say that, are you planning on getting any guest features or anything like that? If you could work with like any artist like right now that you think you could reach out to, like who would you choose?
Um, that's a tough question. I would choose first off just some of my buddies that I have on Instagram. Like Truck Stop Dick Pill. It's a fucking good band.
Truck stop
They're if
Dick
you
Pill.
yeah, if you like raw shit, I'd check them out. Their shit's goofy as fuck, but it's awesome.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
These names are just getting wilder by the year. I swear
I
to
try
God.
to work with them. Um, possibly going a little bit bigger. Possibly like I don't know. That's a tough question. I haven't thought about that much, but if I had to go like bigger, I would definitely want to work with Peeling Flesh. I'd want to work with this one would be tough, but .357 Homicide. I love them.
We've been
That's a
trying
good
to get them
band.
on the show for a little bit. Hopefully,
Yeah,
we will sometime this year.
great band, great band. Um, possibly Infantectomy. Possibly
Let me know, bro. I'm the vocalist now, so I'll definitely feature on a track for sure. No worries.
reach out, bro. Oh, and this buddy that I have, his name's Logan. He does more deathcore. But he's really good vocalist. I'd love to get. I
Nice.
was actually planning on getting him on this album, but I wasn't able to, unfortunately.
But I think that's like the what makes this album so special to me is like there's no features on it. It's all original material because a lot of bands will be like, they'll put out like, let's say for example, a 5-track EP, and then like 3 of the songs have features on it. It's like features are cool, but when it's just like a whole album with like no features and like just completely original material, I think that really makes the music like hit deeper for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And
John, I'm gonna let you take the lead.
yeah, absolutely. And this is just talking about the nature of features as we've understood it in recent time in the 21st century. Then, features and collaborations to me can be really, really fascinating when you truly melt together the creative minds of two different projects. And not only that, but you have more than just the vocalist participating. One good example of this would be Darko on their album Starfire, their song Green Machine that features both Michael, the bassist, and David Simonich, the vocalist from Signs of the Swarm. What I found really fascinating with just Green Machine alone as a song is that Michael, with his skills as a bassist, had to be Darko fast as far as like his strumming pattern on the bass. And then of course on top of that, you had the insectoid heavy vocal spectrum that David Simonich brings to any song by Signs of the Swarm, let alone the features that he's done across the board as he's become more popular in the deathcore scene. For me, it's very important that when it comes to doing a collaboration with a band, that you get more than just the vocalist involved, and that way, per se, a part of your song feels more like it was made by another band. Split EPs to me, the only ones I've seen recently that stuck out, but not in a good way, was probably the Falsifier Victims split, in which really it didn't feel like there was much distinguishment between those two bands. That to me is not a good split. What's a good split is when you can kind of tell the identity of two different bands or two different projects apart, but of course there's a reason they're working together. There's a reason they did a split EP or an album. It's because they worked together just enough that they could be in the same ballpark. They could be at the same show. But of course, still figuring out that way to make it an almost a black and white kind of coagulant liquid melt, or even a black and white oil in a petri dish, right? You want to make sure that your identity kind of sticks out, but still kind of works together in symbiosis with this other band. So with that in mind, I think Backyard Savagery would work really well with most of the bands that we've already mentioned. But I think one thing that will be very, very important if you do want to do features in the near future, and this is coming from the perspective of more or less the umbrella, the individual who's like, I don't know, just constantly darting into different subgenres. Not to say Tony isn't, but I said what I said earlier. Then keeping that in mind, definitely work on establishing your own identity more before you look into features. But I definitely I look forward to whatever artist you want to then get featured into your work. I think you by yourself is going to make Backyard Savagery a lot more interesting. And then as you get more pieces to the puzzle along the way, well, the identity and therefore the anatomy of Backyard Savagery will become more complex. You'll be able to acquire the skin tissue, the bones, the veins, even the eyeballs in the brain, maybe even the schlong, if you decide that it's a dude. It's important to get all those other pieces together. That way you construct more of a skeleton and an anatomy as opposed to just it being an atom or a nucleus on a petri dish. But I look forward to seeing what Backyard Savagery kind of develops for its identity. But I definitely wanted to wrap up the front to back session for Dismembered, Gutted, and Devoured by saying that this is a great debut effort. This is a great full-length album for one person who's learning how to do everything that he is doing for this album. Lyrically speaking, we don't really know what's going on, so we'll have to keep that neutral. Vocally speaking, absolutely 10 out of 10. The production and the way that the consistency of your vocal spectrum shown throughout the entirety of this album demonstrates and tells me that you definitely know what you're doing when it comes to doing slam vocal heavy spectrums. I think the only thing that I would want to hear from every slam band across the scene, and maybe people will hate me for this, I want to actually hear more articulation. That's why I have more personal positive biases with bands like in Virulent, because of course they're combining elements of slam and hardcore, and that way you can hear more of what good old Papa Shobe is saying. But I would definitely love to hear more articulation on future releases if that's something that you decide to do. If not, no worries, because it does contribute then to the culture. It continues to be more pure-blooded slam, and that's okay. So vocal rating, 10 out of 10 for slam, but otherwise definitely continue to experiment, because there's always room for growth. There's always room to continue upon the tradition, but then start exponentially climbing into different ways to keep it slam, but also move forward and then therefore distinguish yourself. Instrumentally speaking, I mean, you're literally the person behind all this. It's very impressive. And again, it makes me look back and say, I should probably start just making my own music by myself, period. Especially with the music that I'm planning to write. It's going to be experimental. It's going to be very strange to a lot of people, whether in slam, deathcore, metalcore, or literally any subgenre of counterculture music, that then umbrellas under metal, rock, and alt, really. Because I plan to be as experimental and as various one day, in due time, as Bring Me the Horizon, or even Bad Omens. Definitely heavy songs, definitely heavy and groovy songs, but sometimes I just want to make songs with the vocal choir, right? So then, your approach instrumentally, I would say the standout tracks from this album, for me, continue to be, 1, Meat Grinder Disfigurement. That was a really good one. Track 8 would be Tortured with Power Tools. Really liked that one. It was slow. It utilized the blast beats that Tony happened to be talking about before that he wanted to hear more of, right? So that was cool. That was rather funny. It was like, oh yeah, here's Tony's song. Punctured with a Screwdriver and Ingesting Putrid Remains, then I think those songs for me ended up standing out the most. With the first listen, who knows what could change with the second, third, fourth, and fifth listen for this album. But of course,
this is definitely going on my my Spotify library. I have that stuff saved already, so I'll be putting that on my repeat.
Thank you, man.
Brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
But ultimately, there's plenty of experimenting that you were doing with this album while it's contributing to a pretty simple, I would argue, pretty simple subgenre of counterculture that, for the most part, wants to keep everything the same. It's like, of course, you know, little rhythm jumps, little time jumps here and there, tiny changes, right? That's usually what slam enthusiasts want to hear, or slamophiles want to hear. So can definitely continue to experiment. Otherwise, for a debut effort, for a debut 10-track album, solid as fuck, my friend. And therefore, I would give you a 10 out of 10.
And for my rating, personally, I would, like, my favorite part has to be, like, your vocals, dude. Like, your vocals are fucking insane. Like, are those inhales? Or are those exhales?
Yeah, they are. I'm learning to do exhales currently. I'm not very good at them, but I'm figuring it out. My buddy Jaden is teaching me a little bit. But yeah, everything on that album was in-house.
Okay, those are really good inhales, dude. Like, solid. Like I said, this album gets an 11 out of 10 for me personally because I'm a slam purist at heart. That's who I am. But I love the vocals. Guitars are fucking phenomenal too. I love the fucking that you love it. I love that you use the Helix for, you know, recording. It's definitely a fucking beefy ass tone. And as far as like lyrically, like personally, I don't care if a band has lyrics or not. So I usually tend to stick to the ones that don't, just because that's kind of what slam originally was like a subgenre of like death metal in the 90s and stuff like that. And there was a lot of like, I'm sure you've maybe heard the term float around of proto slam bands, you know, back in the day. And so I really like just the straight guttural type shit where, you know, I think what I would like to hear you experiment more on, like to kind of to add to Sean's point, is maybe try other things out too. Of hey, let's try some lyrics for this song, or even I want to hear more pig squeals too, because I think you have the voice for being able to do pig squeals with those inhale techniques for sure. But like otherwise, man, I mean, I'd say track 2, 5, 8, and 9 are some of my favorites for sure. I keep touching on it, but the fucking 808 bass drop shit is fucking crazy, man. The fact that you were able to produce that in fucking like Ableton is insane. And I know a lot of people use Ableton for various things. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, more of a EDM focused like production DAW or whatever
Yeah.
whatever the heck it may be. But I have to say your efforts, dude, much appreciated. This is what I like to tell the kids. This is Infantectomy approved. So
Good shit.
Fucking means a lot, man, especially since your band is what got me into this in the first place. It's, I mean, it's weird. It's a small fucking world. It's
yeah.
crazy that I'm talking to you now after fucking discovering you like a year ago, year and a half, whatever.
And you're so
Oh
young
yeah, man.
too.
I appreciate it, man.
Like you're not that much younger
Who?
than me and
Yeah.
Tony, but dude, I mean, the fact that you're starting out, you're putting in the work, you're seasoning yourself, you're initiating yourself, and getting a full-length album out. I mean, dude, I only have a fucking demo out, and that thing's been sitting on Spotify for 2 years. And I mean, I'm planning on basically rewriting it from scratch with the right people. So, I personally commend you for putting in the work despite also being in another band project. And we're actually going to be talking about that in a little bit because I wanna learn about your other shit. I want to learn about what else is relevant to good old Nick here. So my overall rating for this album, kind of repeating some points, but attempting not to be a broken record, right? This is a magnificent first effort for a one-man band project. We've hosted now two other personalities, two other individuals who sought to descend and embark upon their own journeys to become better musicians. This now makes that
Yes.
tradition a trilogy. This brings spotlight to that in a trilogy fashion. This time for Slam, which is, ironically, I would think that it was in the opposite order, really, as far as the timeline and the chronological sense of hosting what was a deathcore slash death pop band, a black metal band slash deathcore band, and then a Slam. I would think it's the other way around, but apparently not. So there's a little bit of irony with that too. Plenty of songs on here that contribute to the Tony Slam, Infantectomy friendly Slam purist culture that I think a lot of Slam fans will be very, very fascinated with. I think this album also touching upon Tony's Slam's point of the 808 aside, I would call it. This then contributes to that same catalog where you'll hopefully one day go to the Extermination Dismemberment profile on Spotify and then recommend an artist below. One of them will be Backyard Savagery. I can easily see that happening. Just keep at it, dude. Keep at it. Be consistent. And
That'd be
eventually,
fucking amazing, man.
yeah, dude. Eventually acquire some live people from the good old salty, briny lake of Salt Lake City, Utah, or the surrounding area around you. Be one of the first, really, and contribute to that heavy culture that way. Not only are you then a part of the 808 aside culture alongside bands like Extermination Dismemberment, but also one day become a part of the Utah local heavy, true counterculture scene alongside bands like Chelsea Grin. I don't really know any others. That's the only one I can think of. But dude, if you keep at it, I'm sure you're going to be a very, very big name over in Utah. And we look forward to it as well. This is the tail beginning of the necessary recognition and spotlight for you and your endeavors. So that, I think, will be a great way to kind of just, boom, slam down a wall, slam, for the front to back session. Now, Tony has asked a couple questions along the way that coincide and are plucked directly from the questionnaire for all of our guests here at the Anatomy Crosscast. So really the only remaining questions that I think I could ask you or feel inclined to ask you from the first part, which is the people part of the podcast, learning more about you, becoming more intimate with your story as a musician. Well, really we've touched on most of the backyard savagery relevant lore that I think we could touch up on. But hell, we haven't even heard the name for the other band that you haven't been, because of distance, right? The reason that you ended up starting this on the side to make sure to keep consistent within yourself and become a better artist, become a better musician. So I think I want to go ahead and kickstart my people part of the podcast questionnaire by asking you about this other band and asking you, one, when did the band start? Are you one of the founding members? Are you a newer piece of the puzzle? Let's go ahead and learn about your place in this other band and what the band's name is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, actually, funny story, my solo project came first. I made that first. And I got to give it to my vocalist. I mean, he's an hour away, but he makes an effort to be here as often as he can. And, um, I mean, he's insane at his fucking vocals. His name's Jaden. But I am one of the founding members of the band, yes. It started like I don't even remember, like a couple months to a year ago, I think, but I might be way off. Fucking,
So
you
within that
know,
window.
weed brain, you know. Um, but yeah, the band's called South of Sanctum. Our vocalist came up with the name. He actually had it for a while. That was just like his Instagram name. Um, and he was thinking about starting a band with that name, and the band was originally just me and my buddy Jason, who's also another guitarist. I'm teaching him as well. Um, and it was originally just me and him, and I think we were gonna call our band. What was it? It was like some Greek creature, some fucking what was it called?
Athena?
Some like, huh?
Athena?
Nah, it was
Well, Athena would
some
be a lady,
like
not a
ancient
creature.
Greek sea creature, something
Hmm.
like that. But
Cthulhu?
I can't think of the name right now.
That's a separate pantheon. Maybe like Cerberus or let's see. There's Cerberus. There's the
Yeah.
the the Tartar, the Centaur, Minotaur. Um, those are the ones I can think of. The Kraken, Hydra. Um,
What
this is
one of the questions I wanted to ask you, sorry to cut you off, Sean, my bad.
you're good.
But one of the questions I wanted to pick from the people part of the podcast is Nick, how did you come up with the name Backyard Savagery? Did you just decide one day that this is going to be the name, or did you kind of like go online and look at different like terms and stuff like that? How did you come up with that name?
Yeah, so my solo project, I originally named it Virus. And then I like through the middle of it, I wanted to switch it because there was an issue when you would search up Virus, it would always pull up this rapper from the UK, uh, who's actually a pretty good rapper, but I didn't want like my name to be mixed up with his or anything, so I thought I'm gonna change it, and I just wanted something that sounded like fucking stupid and brutal at the same time. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put a normal word with a fucking brutal word, whatever. I was thinking like backyard something would be cool, you know, because I'm fucking always in my backyard. I guess it makes sense. Um, and I'm like, all right, I'll call myself Backyard Savagery. That fucking works.
It's fucking hard, bro. I fuck with that. And so what separates you from other bands? What do you think what would you say in your opinion like you're trying to do different versus like other slam bands that like maybe for instance, bands like Pathology or maybe even something as simple as like Visceral Disgorge, like what separates yourself from that besides being obviously a one-man project?
Well, as of right now, I personally don't think that much separates me from a lot of slam bands. I feel like there's still a long way to go with me learning my exact style and figuring out what kind of tones I want to use and all sorts of things. I know I like stuff with a
Right.
raw mix, so that's what I like doing. I like a raw mix. But fucking like one thing I would have to say is I take a lot of inspiration from Internal Bleeding. And I know everyone does pretty much, but I like blast beats. I like fast parts. Like put some tremolo picking in my next project so far. Like a bit of that, but I also like to mainly focus on 100% groove, just constant groove,
Right.
no switch ups, just little repetitive, but I fucking love it that way.
Hell yeah, man.
Badass. And I mean, ultimately too, as per my lack of seasoning in some places, Internal Bleeding is definitely not one of those bands that I've listened to. I more or less had the Himalayan pink salt as opposed to the regular salt, and I put that on sweet potato fries instead of French fries. Like that's my level of life seasoning that I got going on right now. So then, how how then would Internal Bleeding incorporate into what Backyard Savagery has done or is planning to do in the future? Because I remember you mentioned soon after that tremolo picking, which for me is rather foreign to slam. So is that something that comes from Eternal Bleeding? Maybe Tony can touch up on this as well.
Um, I'm gonna be real. I haven't listened to much Internal Bleeding. I've heard of like that. What's yeah, Nick? What's the album with like the guy with the gun to his head or whatever? That I think that's like their first album, maybe.
Uh,
Um,
the one with the gun to his head. Oh, I know what
yeah.
you're talking about. I was thinking about the one with his knife through his head.
Oh,
A lot of
Yeah,
stuff
no, I
goes
know
through
what
the
you're
head for
talking
him.
about, but I don't remember the name of it.
Oh shit.
no, you're good. I definitely think like there's a lot of like bleed over between like brutal death and slam. This is obviously like a project where I think you're trying to be more like in your face, like fucking just constant riffage, like you said, constant grooves. There I definitely hear like some caprocephalic mutation and 357 homicide, as well as I hear things like porn. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but I get some porno grind feels to it too as well. Like maybe some gore grind and shit like that. Like Last Days of Humanity, not necessarily in blast beat form, but like the vocals and like some of the riffs because those fucking guitars, man, the tone, like it's like if you took a fucking piece of like aluminum and then just started fucking taking like some goddamn hammers and like steel wool and started scratching it on the mic. That's what I could equivalate to how the guitar tone is because it's just so chunky and scratchy. It's like touching a good part of your ear with the audio and shit. So I definitely have that
Absolutely.
appreciation for it. And like I said, dude, it means a lot that like I inspired you to like make music, man. That really means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Because my whole goal when I started music was like inspire others, obviously, and I definitely like want to, I guess, make a name for myself as well, just like you in the scene, and but obviously, like you and I being like-minded individuals, like at the same time, be a humble person of like not necessarily nonchalant, but just being like, because like obviously I've had people come up to me and be like, "Yo, you're Tony Slam," and it's just like, "Oh, thanks." Like I'm just some dude on the internet just making music, just like you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, one other kind of general question. I think this is a good surface level one that we have in the first half of our questionnaire. I mean, you're young. You have two projects. You probably haven't been doing this for that long of a time, or maybe you haven't nearly invested yourself into the culture as long as me and Tony have. So maybe this is too infantile a question, and you'll get what I mean when I ask it. What lessons have you learned as a person or musician, and how did those lessons drive you? Or how could they apply to others trying to accomplish what you have so far? I would think that caters namely to you learning what you needed to learn about musical composition, sound engineering, and maybe the necessary conversations, the efforts that it required for you to get dismembered, gutted, and devoured together. What lessons have you learned maybe from that experience and working with this other band? And what lessons would you attempt to share and tell to other musicians maybe wanting to write their first full-length album or EP by themselves because they're tired of waiting for other people to get involved? Maybe like me.
Absolutely. Yeah, just jump into it. Don't waste any time. Spend a lot of time working on what you like to do, and if it's something that you want to do, getting into it at a younger age is a very good idea because you have more time to get good. I originally got into guitar in like 6th grade, and before that, previously like 4th grade, and I stopped because I just played acoustic, and I wasn't a big fan of it at the time. I thought it was boring, and yeah, I was a younger kid. I wanted to play video games. I wanted to hang out and be lazy, and now I regret that so much because like imagine where I'd be if I kept playing guitar through 4th grade all the way to where I am now. I would be a lot better at all sorts of different things. I'd have a lot more like range with what I can do. And I'm still getting there with, starting early, but I definitely wish I would have stuck with it. So if you get going on something, stick with it. Don't give up on it. Uh, don't listen to people. There's a lot of people that will fucking shit on you, and that's fine. It's like everyone has their opinion. Just fucking do what you want to do and put effort into it. Don't stop. And that's probably the only lesson I've learned so far. Besides, I want to get more involved with my local scene. I haven't been to that many shows. Haven't never been in a mosh pit yet. Fucking,
Really?
I want to, but yeah, I'm like fucking. No, I'm not anti like social at all. I love
Maybe
being social,
maybe more
but
of a homebody.
yeah, I'm a homebody, and when I go out and I go into the local scene, like going to these shows and stuff, sometimes I'm just in the corner headbanging. I dance a little bit, but I'm more like not scared of people, but I just have this like thing where I don't really want to interact with people, but I really do at the same time. It's kind of weird.
Hmm.
So I want to get more involved. I want to interact with people more, make new friends in the scene, find people that like the kind of music that I like, and I guess just like stop being kind of afraid to talk to more people in the scene.
That's fair.
Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit. I am a little scared to go talk to people that like the same stuff that I like.
That's fair. And here's the thing too. For the longest time, my friend, throughout elementary, middle, and high school, of course, kind of cliche story. Might as well be a fucking background character in Mean Girls saying this, but um, honestly, dude, when it came to getting seasoned, getting initiated, and getting involved in what I would understand to be counterculture, the anime community, getting to know metal, screamo bands, and then jumping exponentially because my friend's mom was like, "What is this pussy shit that you're listening to?" Because we were listening to Pierce the Veil and Sleeping with Sirens. She's like, "Nah, fuck that." And we proceeded then to jump over to Cannibal Corpse, Marilyn Manson, Rammstein, and we blasted that in a car, which sound system could barely handle it. I kid you not. If it continued for much longer, the windows would probably shattered and broken. Because this was a lemon that we were just driving around and joyriding in while we were listening to this stuff. But we listened to that stuff and nothing was ever the same. But still, at high school, because I was in a very, very entitled and richer part of the Northeast Mesa, Arizona community, that being Red Mountain. That's where I went to high school. Finished at Desert Hills High School, though. I just doxed myself. Just kidding. I don't fucking care. When I was there, the approach to counterculture was definitely, it was not really existent. However, it seems that the party culture there, the drug use, that was very, very present. So you heard more of like Biggie and Tupac rap than you did of screamo or deathcore or metalcore. And I kid you not, there were plenty of times once I found the right people where we were skateboarding through the polished marble floors and we were just blasting Attila Party with the Devil, bitch. And we were just fucking causing a whole bunch of mayhem. We were causing so much mischief, but we never actually did anything that would garter or cater to, oh, you guys are suspended, you're expelled. Funny thing, it was most of the partying, like Taylor Swift regulars who tagged the side of what was it? We had these like buildings on the side. They weren't buildings. I forgot the name of them. But they tagged the side of the building saying "bitch ass Flanagan" in reference to a police officer that we had on campus. And I mean, hell, me and my buddies, after we all got comfortable and initiated a culture, started a culture called the Amp Kids, the Amphitheater Kids over at Red Mountain, dude. Once that all like kind of kicked into gear, we were unstoppable. But we also got involved in near school shootings where we had no means to equal the battlefield. Anyways, it's a bunch of lore about me. What I'm trying to say is, at first, yes, absolutely, it's intimidating to get involved with your local community. But once you make a name for yourself, once you present yourself as being humble, modest, maybe even Disney level optimistic like I have most of the time, that's really where your connections come in. That's where your long-time friendships via the creative mediums that you're working so hard on, right? These are the friends you make after falling off a board or getting into an accident. These are the friends that attend to you and like, oh, are you okay? Those can be some of your greatest connections ever. So speaking from the perspective of a 25-year-old who definitely went through all of that already, and now most of those people have left, but that just happens with time. That's okay. I would offer the advice to you of having little to no hesitancy. And even if people kind of get intimidated by your awkwardness or your weirdness, or maybe you're like, yo, I'm in a band called Backyard Savagery, and one of my favorite bands is Torso Fucked. What's your name? Sometimes people get spooked away, but sometimes you then meet some of the coolest people that match your awkwardness, that match your weirdness, and then literally have no hesitancy and only have social walls when people actually tell you to fuck off. If people present themselves as being open to your connection and want to reciprocate that positivity, have no hesitancy, deep dive head first, and just keep your wits about you. Make sure that you're not getting double crossed, but for the most part, just keep an open mind, dude, and always welcome new opportunities, welcome new people into your life, no matter how old you get. And you are bound to make some of the greatest friendships you'll ever make. I think that's like kind of my advice thing to someone pretty younger than me and Tony both. Because this life is fun.
You're still pretty fresh into the game, so
I am too. Yeah.
You'll learn a lot of things and like understand, like, because when it comes to like I feel your pain on the whole, like, oh, I want to go up to these people, but I'm worried what they'll perceive me as. And it's like I've struggled with that for a long time, because I'm sure maybe you've seen a few memes of me floating around on the internet and stuff like that. And it took a long time, dude, to like get comfortable with just being in front of a camera. It took Sean a long time too. We were touching on this a few episodes ago or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it one thing I will say is don't be afraid to just be yourself, dude. Like, honestly, if people fucking talk shit and, give you shit and want to perceive you a certain way, you can't like let that cloud your judgment or cloud like what like make you rethink like, oh, should I be doing this music stuff? Because it seems like all people do is just like shit on me or call it trash, and it's like you're not going to be everyone's friend, bro. You know what I mean? That's just kind of comes with being a part of the scene. And like I don't get along with a lot of people a lot of people in the scene myself.
And
Like
neither
there's
do
a
I.
lot of like yeah, there's a lot of like shitheads that who I won't name, but you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, especially in the deathcore scene where it's like, okay, why are we literally making this person famous? And this actually refers back to what you guys were talking about earlier about like, falling in reverse and like Ronnie Radke and shit. I was gonna tell you guys that like it took me 5 years of hearing that fucking like my life is like a video game to fucking realize that that was fucking Ronnie Radke. I was like, what the fuck? Falling in Reverse made this fucking song? Because obviously it's like I don't know if you guys fucking use TikTok or not, but I saw that like
I do.
meme. It was a meme on TikTok for the longest time, and I was like, oh, this is a catchy song. And then I fucking listened to it like literally last night, and I was like, this is fucking Ronnie Radke, bro. What the fuck? Because like he's talking about growing up to be a big boy and how he's trying to get coins and he's trying to save the girl and shit. And I'm like, dude, this is so fucking corny, but yet it's like, dude, fucking bro, literally that I think that song alone, I don't know, it's got like millions of plays, I would imagine, because it's fucking falling in reverse. And
Right.
you know, I kind of feel I relate to Nick a lot as far as like, he started off in a much like softer realm of music before he started making music. Like he had to like kind of experience what different genres of music sound like, and that's what I did too. Like I grew up listening to like Avril Lavigne and Britney Spears and Jay-Z and shit like that, just whatever my mom and aunt listened to. And so, I started off with that. Then I got into like other heavier genres as I became a teenager and shit like that, and just kind of started experimenting. Like I used to listen to like Asking Alexandria and Suicide Silence, which I still play Suicide Silence every now and then. But Sleeping with Sirens,
Great
Pierce the
band.
Veil, all those guys, fucking. So I definitely relate to you as far as like growing up in like a different genre of music for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I started out with
Absolutely,
EDM.
absolutely.
It was all EDM and dubstep at the
That's
very beginning.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
that shit was, and
Yeah.
I'm like, not only that, but I kind of jumped in during that music's peak, like 2012 to 2015, I would say. Skrillex and Deadmau5, Cruella, Knife Party, Headhunters, a whole bunch of different artists. Avicii, before he passed away, rest in peace. Um,
Rest in peace.
Never forget the Silent Children documentary. Um, let's
Dude,
see.
man, that was like the first documentary that made me cry.
Mm. Well, here's the thing: the Silent Children documentary was actually never made. But what I mean by that is Avicii.
Not the Silent Children, but there's obviously a few documentaries on
Oh yeah,
him
yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube and shit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And like I watched one of them and I literally started tearing up and shit. So,
Lot of
you know.
Slam album material. Not to be too insensitive. um. Anyways, I think one of the final questions that I would want to ask from the people part of the podcast would be, ironically, number 8, which reads, "What do the members, even though there's only one member, what do you, Nick, do for fun to kind of like detach yourself from your musical endeavors?" I mean, sure, as musicians, as music enthusiasts, which collectively all of us can be confirmed as that, um, I mean, there's something that you're going to want to be able to do outside of even your musical endeavors. So when you're not doing music, what do you do for fun?
Interesting question. I love to play video games. Like I said, I'm more of a homebody. I used to be extroverted as fuck, but now I'm more like an introvert. And I like to play video games. I just got a new computer and I'm playing a bit on that. I have an Xbox too. Other than that, I like to play with my dog. Fucking love animals, man.
You do.
Um, I've always been interested in animals. I've had snakes, geckos, all sorts of shit. Um, and I like to go hiking. I like the mountains and like being outside, out of the city, in like fucking nature or whatever. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think nature's beautiful, and I fucking like to explore the world and just shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
I've
Um,
got I've got some non backyard savagery related questions for you real quick. So, top 5 video games.
Right now, it would have to be the one I'm playing most. So what I would put in number one is Body Cam. I don't know
Nice.
if you guys know that game. It's
I
pretty
sure
fucking
do.
crazy. Um, Gunshots sound amazing in the headphones. It's wild. Halo has always been pretty much my favorite game, so I'll put that in number two. Never been big on Call of Duty, but I always loved Halo. I liked the old Call of Duties though. Um, Number three would have to be the Walking Dead Telltale series. I like fucking story games. It's a great game. It tells a fucking immaculate story. In my opinion, it's the best game from Telltale. Um, what was that? Number three?
Yeah, number 3. Yeah,
That was
2
3.
more.
Alright. So number four would have to be Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I
Okay.
fucking love that game. And number five would be Skyrim.
Okay,
Nice.
good shit.
And dude, those are all good games. Body Cam's fucking.
It looks really
I haven't
fun.
played it, but I've seen the gameplay, man. It's pretty realistic.
Dude,
What'd you say, Sean?
I said it looks pretty fun.
Yeah. It's definitely like it's kind of like I'm sure Nick knows like Ready or Not or whatever.
Mm.
It's one of those like SWAT game. It's not a SWAT game necessarily. I think you play as like a cop or something like that. But
you know, they added
uh,
a new zombie mode to it too.
Oh, no
And
fucking way,
oh
dude.
dude, it's like
oh
Call of Duty Zombies, but in my opinion, better. Not than the OG ones, but then the new ones. It's fucking awesome. If you have the
what
shit to run it, man, I definitely recommend checking it out.
what is your PC specs?
Dude, I am not good with that type of shit. I have
A
what's it
pre-built?
called again? Yeah, I have a pre-build.
He says I have an
Um,
Alienware PC. Oh shit.
Frog
Whoa,
Strike, whatever.
nice.
It's got like anime and shit on the back of the box, but I just
Is it
got
a
that and it runs it amazing. Alienware will definitely be able to run it too.
Mm.
Yeah, they've always been a pretty like top-notch brand. My cousin had she had a Alienware PC from 2013 and she was playing fucking, Back for Blood and fucking like Warhammer or whatever the fuck on it like at like 60 or 120 frames. Like
That's insane.
she was good on that. Yeah, those things are built to last for sure. That's like one of the few brands, despite what people say. People don't like Alienware sometimes because like they're fucking Nvidia purists or whatever the fuck, and then
Right.
it's yeah,
I mean,
it's
mainly
it's
I
kind of
mean,
like the Lamborghini of PC ware, I guess.
yeah. I've always understood Alienware to be like scalped in pricing, so that was like the joke I was attempting to nudge into the conversation. Like, did you spend like $5,000 on your gaming PC, buddy? Hopefully not, right? But I know I've never been able to afford an Alienware, even with a full-time job and plenty of money like stashed to the side. But I do believe that will be all we need to ask for part
The
one
end.
of the
I
Anatomy
did.
Crosscast
I,
and the first date session with Backyard Savagery. Tony?
yeah, and I wanted to ask him a final question, just like a more personal question.
Yeah.
If you had one, Nick, what's your favorite Infantectomy song?
I'm gonna have to go with New Slam. I like the new shit. It goes fucking hard, dude, and it's just like it's absolutely fucking revolting in the sense that like the guitar it's just so crazy. It's so fucking loud, and it sounds like so much is going on, but you can
Right.
still like hear it and understand a little bit of it, and it's fucking badass. So
I appreciate you,
definitely
man.
definitely that one from the newer EP. It was an EP, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was the
Yeah.
EP. Yeah, I appreciate you,
Yep.
man. Fucking, I'm
Yeah.
playing
Slammed
the.
in
Slammed into
the
you,
new
bro.
single too. Slammed in. Yeah, the new single is badass too.
Ah, thanks, bro. Appreciate you. Fucking, yeah. I mean, I'm playing the 10 string on New Slam.
Yeah,
So
I saw that. You have an Ajili, right? or agile, however you call it.
Yeah.
Like Gyla.
Here you go.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
dude, I was looking into get matte black one of those, but unfortunately I wasn't able to, so I got the fucking um Schecter instead. But I was looking at some 8 strings that they had. They're fucking badass brand. They're from Korea, right?
I forget where actually. I'm not. Somebody who you could ask like that would be like Che or something like that. He
Yeah.
would know better.
I'm pretty
But yeah,
sure they were, but I don't know.
I think it's an American-based company because they're called Rondo Music, the manufacturer who makes them and stuff. But this one was $1,200, brand new, never been used. I got it within like maybe a few weeks or something like that. It didn't take long to come at all.
Yeah, they're fucking badass guitars. I wanted one so bad, man. I don't. A lot of people don't like the headless guitars, but I like the way they fucking look. I think they look cool.
It's really convenient too because like you just tune the fucking knobs from the bottom with an Allen wrench, which is a little
Yeah, I've seen that.
inconvenient if you don't have it on you, but it literally stays in tune, dude. Like it basically never goes out of tune, and it's a lot lighter compared to like a guitar with a proper head on it. So it makes while it's a little awkward to play because of the like thickness of the fucking guitar, it's definitely like um a very simple like setup as far as like putting in the strings and stuff like that because obviously it uses like the same like bridge as a fucking normal guitar other than the tuners. So I mean,
Um,
if you want to go look for one, the website I would recommend for you to look for 10 strings or extended range just guitars in general is reverb.com because
yeah, that's where I got my Schecter from. Fucking
oh
great
yeah,
company.
yeah,
Yeah.
Schecter is fucking
So
badass.
your it is basically like an Evertune but better because you can bend.
What's that Evertune?
You know, it's a kind of guitar bridge, and it's basically like you set it all up and fucking put it perfectly in place, and your shit's supposed to stay in tune for like a long ass time. But I've never tried one.
Honestly, I'm not technically inclined when it comes to like working on guitars. I just know how to play the fucking things. That's why I mean, I change my own strings, of course, but I'm not like well versed in like how electronics and guitars work and stuff like that. But I can say that like it basically never goes out of tune. I'd say the only time it goes out of tune is like right before a show, basically, and then when I'm recording,
Ironically.
a lot of like yeah, like a lot of the times it's like I usually musicians obviously will wear a tuner on their guitar and make sure that before each take that like it's still in tune. This one I don't really have to check that often, like if it's in tune or not. It just stays in tune practically. But as far as like Evertune goes, I would say it's a much like simpler Evertune like setup, even though I've never really like interacted with it, Evertune stuff other than maybe like Kiesel.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it because I mean I don't know shit about them. I've never tried one either, but what I've heard is once they're set in place, you can't really bend them. I've heard there's tricks you can do,
Yeah,
like bend the strings. I've heard there's tricks you can do to make that possible, but I just kind
to
of
like
like
set
you.
the
I
one
I
tuning.
know, yeah, I know a lot of parts and stuff with guitars, but I'm not very inclined in that sort of thing either. I have a JP in my corner over there, Sterling, and it has, I don't know what it's called, but it has a bridge that kind of goes inside of the guitar. And when I restrung it, it fucking like kind of fell in the guitar and kind of messed it all up. And yeah, it's
Now that you
fucking
mention
goofy
it,
shit, man. But
yeah, now that you mention it, I do believe that like my homie Che, for instance, like he has a Kiesel with an 8 string, and it's like a headless. He's I'm sure you've seen it, but I know that one. I don't know how the tuning system works, but I do know that it only stays in one tuning. Like you can't change it, like you said. So if I had to guess, it's probably like a similar setup, or if not, like the same thing.
I like to change. I like to experiment with tunings a lot. I've been experimenting with what diphenylchlorazine uses, and it's fucking nasty. I
Yeah,
like to change my shit all the time, so I couldn't do one of those.
yeah. Well, shit, man. You're definitely a talented guy. We appreciate you coming on and shit. And it was a fucking pleasure speaking to you. Type shit. Is there any homies, bands, or stuff you want to shout out, or stuff like that? Social media.
Um, yeah, fucking Hydrill. They're a great band from LA. Fucking really underground. The fucking guy who made it, I think he also does like DSBM. And he's fucking good at what he does, so definitely him. And then my band, South of Sanctum, but we already talked about that.
We'll
No
get them
worries.
on the
Shout
show
it out
next
again,
time.
of course. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It was fucking fun.
Yeah, of
yeah,
course, dude.
to kind of continue then off of the question that Tony was asking too, this is definitely a collective ego boost question. What bands would you want to see on the Anatomy Crosscast going into the near future? If not South of Sanctum, maybe you got some fan favorites and stuff that you would want to see us having conversations with.
Yeah, I think not really a band necessarily, but a very good individual. He's always fucking making music. He doesn't stop what he does, so he's usually a little busy. It might be a little bit difficult, but if it's possible, I would love to see Larry Wang on the show. Um,
Ah,
he's in so many bands, and I think that there would be a lot to talk about regarding him, and it would be a good episode because there's like, fuck, I mean, he's in Gorepot.
Corrosive Power.
He's in so many fucking bands, dude. I can't even think of all of them. So you'd have a shit ton of things to talk about with
Talk
him.
about.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
We'll definitely have to get in touch with him then. But yeah. Currently we're getting closer to a 3 hour session. I was planning to do like an under the skin for your album, but I'm not sure if there was like any stories you had or any lyrical context for that album, as per more or less the album seemingly contributing to and continuing the slam purist culture, and like Tony was talking about, right? Maybe with that there wasn't that much going on with the lyrics. Can you confirm or deny that?
There is absolutely no lyrics. It's
Okay.
just,
Let's
I like to
go.
think of I like to think of it like I'm using my voice as
An
one of the
instrument.
instruments.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah.
In that case,
So there's
Yep.
absolutely no lyric.
there, yeah, therefore, no reason to do an under the skin session. This will be a pretty straightforward anatomy crosscast session. Nick, thank you for on such short
Thank you.
notice taking the time, jumping on the show, introducing us to the future of Utah local purist slam, 808 aside slam. And we definitely hope to hear from South of Sanctum in the future, as well as Backyard Savagery, as you continue putting your brain on paper, my friend. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between, this has also been the debut session of me and Tony Slam co-hosting the session. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. I think there will be a comment thing or somewhere you can comment on the show. So if you liked it, just be sure to comment Backyard Savagery or Savagery in the Backyard. Get goofy with it. Fucking spam the comment section. And for the YouTube upload, go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between, to go ahead and mention any bands that you would want to see on the show in the near future. Whether for a, like, just in general, the more shows that we have, the more sessions we have for me and Tony to both co-host in the name of Slam and to contribute to the culture, to interact with the culture, and then cobweb globally Slam as a culture, the better. But this has been the Anatomy Crosscast, and we'll see you guys later.